What do I like in a book? Let's talk about that. G'day to all you lovely people. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Kathy, and today I wanted to talk about what makes me love a book, like a book. What draws me to a particular book over other books. I thought this might be an interesting topic, and I thought I would share my thoughts on this with you. My 2 cents worth, I guess. It's funny, until recently I hadn't really considered what it was that did draw me to a particular book. Though I think I knew generally in the back of my mind what I liked and what I didn't like. For me, good writing is key, essential. It doesn't matter how great the story is, how great the characters are, the writing has to be good. It doesn't have to be flowery, doesn't have to be extremely descriptive, but it has to be well written. You know, following the basic rules of grammar and spelling, that kind of thing. If the writing is too simplistic or amateurish, that can put me off. Something else I always look for in a book is characters I can love. If I don't like any of the characters, it does not matter how good the story is, how great the plot, I will not enjoy the book, and I most likely won't finish it. If I love a character, I can forgive plot holes. I can forgive a mediocre story, but I have to like or love this character. I don't even need to relate to them. I just have to like them. I am much more forgiving of mediocre stories or mediocre plots if the characters are great. Not every story has to blow your mind, I don't think. There are times when I don't care if the story isn't all that original or interesting, if the characters are. Whether they make me laugh or whether they make me cry. They don't even need to do all that much if they are interesting to me. And if I love a character, yeah, I am so much more forgiving of other issues with a book. But I have to really love them. As to what I love in a character, oh, that really depends what I'm reading and what mood I am in. Generally, I do like heroic figures, like a true hero who is prepared to sacrifice to do the right thing. Yeah, I do like that. I can't deny it. I also like characters that are redeemed in a book, who you may start hating and then eventually learning to love and appreciate because you understand them as time goes by. I love seeing a character develop, not stay static in a book as well. They don't always have to be heroic, they can be anti-heroes, but I have to see something likable in them, whether it is that they have a great sense of humor, or perhaps they are very cynical, or a reluctant hero. I do like reluctant heroes. Or it might be that they are just such a well-drawn character who I understand, and I find something in them to like. I don't need to love every character in a book. Sometimes it's fun to actually hate one and yet love someone else. But there has to be at least one character that I really like, preferably love, at least. Characters that are not fleshed out enough, I always feel dissatisfied with, no matter how good the story is. When it comes to fantasy, I want a detailed, rich, intricate world. That's what I want. I love worlds that have lots of different cultures, lots of different customs that are different to our world. I do not want to read a fantasy where the world is like ours, unless it's urban fantasy, which is an entirely different thing. If this is a fantasy based in, say, medieval times or similar to medieval times, then I need to see something original. I'm not interested in reading a historical novel. I want to see something different. I want originality in the worlds that people create in fantasy, because that is the whole point for me in reading fantasy, is reading something fantastical, different to our world. Not something that I can recognize in a history book. As for magical systems, I will not deny that a very well made, fleshed out and detailed magical system is interesting, but it also has to be easy enough to understand how it works. I don't want something so technical that it takes me a long time to work out how magic operates, say, in a world. I'm even fine with the magic being very simple. That is fine too, if it has a great story. As for what I look in the plots, I like unpredictable plots. I like epic plots, definitely. I like stories where you might start here and end up somewhere else entirely, which you never would have expected. Definitely unpredictability is something I enjoy in books. I like to be kept guessing. Perhaps because I have read so much fantasy over the years, I find it sometimes too easy to guess what is going to occur in a series of books. So it's nice when people do surprise me. Even though I do love fantastical worlds, I have learned to appreciate urban fantasy as well. I like this juxtaposition between our contemporary world and magical elements. In fact, I really love it. It's becoming something I'm really enjoying reading at the moment. Tastes do change, I guess. Yeah, you can't forget that. I also love epic stories. Yeah, never enough. That should be my motto, right? I never can get enough. I love The Wheel of Time, which is 14 very thick books, and I want another 14 because I'm never satisfied. I think for me, having this great epic story means I can spend weeks, months immersing myself in this world. I love that. I always feel very sad at finishing an epic series because I always want more and more and more. So I'm generally drawn to long series, but they have to be good. They have to be well written. I'm not really one for standalone books, though that doesn't mean I can't read them. They're just not my favorites. If I see a long series, I look forward to reading it, assuming that I do like it. When it's not fantasy, however, I am quite happy to read standalone books. I don't have an issue with that. But I love it when I read, say, a particular book and then the author brings out another book and has characters from the previous books. I just adore that because they're familiar, right? Even if it is a story about someone else, just seeing these old characters is like meeting an old friend. I love that part. I won't deny that sometimes a cover can sway me. Sometimes. In buying it, not in liking it. A bad cover will not put me off a book, particularly if the story sounds interesting. As to the kind of stories I like, it's hard to say. It can fluctuate with my mood. Having read quite a bit of fantasy over the years, I have failed quite often in finding something that does appeal to me. I'll read the blurb, it might sound interesting, and I'll read it and find it's not for me. I know many people talk about tropes that they don't like in books. I don't really have an issue with tropes. As I said before, I'm much more forgiving about plots. and plot holes if I love the characters. Though it is nice to have a book be unpredictable, whereas tropes make them much more predictable. It's even better when somebody takes a trope and then turns it on its head. I noticed that quite recently in many of Terry Pratchett's books. He does that all the time, and I love it because I never know what he's going to do with it. So that is a lot of fun. But yeah, I don't have any inherent objections to tropes. I think they exist because they work. Yeah. After finishing the video, I realized I had left out all these other things that I love in a book. So here we go. All right. First, in relation to characters, my preference is always for people who are different, who are individualistic and even unique. People who stand out. And when I say stand out, I don't mean that they necessarily have to be extraordinary. They're just not the norm. They're not your typical stereotypes. You know, the strong silent type, or, you know, the very feminine woman, or the sidekick. I like characters who have depth to them. Stereotypes are useful in books. It gives you an idea of who this person is, but I like people who don't always fit into any category. They are definitely the ones I'm drawn to the most. I also really love when a book has strong female characters. And the truth is, I have struggled to find strong females in fantasy particularly. There have been few and far between. It has improved. We have now a much broader range of female characters in books, though I still have an issue with strong females. They tend to be portrayed as either bullies or nags, and I can't abide that. A woman can be a strong personality without being either. And when I talk about strength, I'm talking about somebody with strength of will, strength of character, who is perhaps driven or ambitious, but not necessarily a nag or a bully, or even worse, a ball breaker, as I keep hearing. That really bothers me. I think people can be strong without necessarily being an unpleasant character. And yet it seems that strong women are often portrayed as unpleasant in some way or another. And that does not mean they cannot be flawed, because flawed characters are the best. They are relatable because we are all flawed as well. I won't deny that I am a sucker for a happy ending, but not if it isn't suitable for the story. Not everyone gets a happy ending, and I want endings that are realistic with the rest of the story. And there are times when the ending should not be happy. I cannot stand endings which are a cop-out, which are the easy way out. I prefer the harsher or sadder endings to a happy one if that is what the story calls for. And I think you can tell when a book shouldn't end well, and it does. I like it when a book reveals an author's views or beliefs without preaching at me. It makes me feel like I understand them better, and perhaps what motivated them to write this particular story. I don't want to be preached at. I just like it when an author will share their views as impartially as they can. I do love it when I find an author whose humour appeals to me. And I can be difficult to please in books. Maybe shows as well, yeah, to be honest. There are certain shows, for example, that are very popular but don't appeal to me. They don't tickle my funny bone. And I love it when I find that an author's sense of humour appeals to me. Because there's nothing better than reading a book and just laughing out loud because you're really enjoying the humour in it. Doesn't happen to me very often, I have to admit. So when I do find it, I love it. And I do prefer when there is some humour in a book, Not excessive amounts, not silly humor, but touches of it here and there. It kind of makes it more realistic for me. It makes the book more appealing if it can also make me laugh on occasion. Just as long as there isn't too much of it that it takes away from the story. And last but not least are books that make me think. Books that you put down and you can't stop thinking about. Thinking about an issue that they may have raised, or a moral dilemma, or possibilities. Those are my favorite books because I will think about them for weeks, months, sometimes even years. And what higher praise can a book be given than that it has left you wondering or thinking about it months down the track? Now, that does not mean that every book has to leave me wondering or thinking about it after I finish it. Sometimes there's a lot to be said for something really light and airy that you don't even have to think about. But those that do stimulate my intellect are definitely some of my favorite books. Well, that is all I can think of that draws me to a particular book. I'm sure I've left things out. I always do. And that's because I don't script my videos. But anyway, I guess maybe I should also talk one day about what I don't like in a book or what I hate. But now I'd love to hear what draws you to liking a book. What is it that you look for in books when you read? And you can let me know down in the comments, or you can contact me on Instagram. Well, thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it made you think about what you like in books. And as usual, you can like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I hope you all have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.